Hey everybody, welcome back to FSI DFS. I'm McGrew31. Going to be breaking down the 14 game slate for Friday, August 6th. And probably going to be a short video today because even though it's a 14 game slate and no weather concerns, which is excellent, there's a lot of mediocre pitching and there's a lot of hitters and okay situations. So I just wanted to run down kind of like the pitchers that are considered playing and the stacks, and then we'll just do lineup breakdown. Going game by game, it's just going to make everything just too long and too complicated for everybody. So starting with pitching, I think my number one choice is going to be Chris Bassett tonight, taking on Texas. He's faced Texas 3 times this season, been in the 20s for DK points anywhere. He had a couple of ones where he only had like 4 strikeouts against them, but a couple other ones where he had like 7 strikeouts. This Texas lineup, without Gallo anymore, just really isn't anything special. It's a downgrade to go out to the Oakland Park versus the Texas Park. It's only be 70 degrees and then cooling off after that. So I think it's a great pitching situation for him and a great matchup. And I think out of all the pitchers on the slate, he's definitely the one that's probably the safest with the most floor. Second up would be Corbin Burnes. Amazing season. But his last 2 starts, he's only gone 6 innings and 4 innings. And as I've said time and time in this video, I'm just really concerned that the Milwaukee Brewers are doing some load management stuff when it comes to their pitchers. And they're just really kind of trying to get to the end of the regular season with these guys intact, no injuries, keep them fresh, but don't keep them too long. They've got an excellent bullpen to come in and take over. It's kind of like the same situation as the Dodgers. They don't need to go too deep, but definitely a good pitcher, a good strikeout pitcher, but comes up against the Giants offense who's decent. They only have a 3.61 total. I know they still have some injuries, but they're starting to get some other people back. Tom Stella is back in the lineup, and I know he has some power. I used to love playing him, I believe, on the Angels a couple of years ago. Have some little bit of speed there. And the Giants could throw out here bunch of lefty bats. The only righties that possibly in the lineup would be Brian and Posey, and they can hit righties decently too. So for 10K, I don't say don't play him, but I'd prefer Bassett or some of these other guys just to have some more money to get some of these nice bat stacks tonight. Next guy I'd recommend would be Adam Wainwright. Quietly having a decent season this year. Seems like he was injured the last couple of years and just not quite right, but everything seemed to come back into form. He's got a good matchup here against Kansas City. It's at St. Louis, so they lose to DH. So there's another, bat with potential strikeouts there. Looking at his last couple of games, like he's been around 19 DK points, 28 DK points, 19 DK points, 15 DK points. He had one against San Francisco, which I just said was a decent offense, 8 DK points, but 17. 27. So he's and even 17 at Colorado is decent. K's, we're looking at anywhere like 5 to 6 a game. Quality starts. Looks like he's had a bunch of those, 2, 4, like 5 out of the last 7. Earned runs 1, 2, 3. There's 1, 4 in there. Not too many. So I think he's efficient. I think he can get some strikeouts, and I think he can get you where you need to be. The last one that I'd kind of recommend in the high range would be Greinke. He's again not what he used to be. Like I know, like San Francisco again beat him. Seems like a theme here. He only had last time out, he had 3 points against them, but Texas 18, Cleveland 16. Cleveland before that 23. So Minnesota lost a lot of bats here, the trade deadline, and with some injuries. Some of these younger guys are decent, and he's reverse splits pitcher, so you got to look at the righties here. So it kind of helps like Donaldson and Garver and Snow if they're in the lineups. But I don't think you're going to see a ton of Ks here. But I think definitely with Houston's total, like you probably get the win there, -218 favorite. So I think there's some strikeouts, and I think he's okay to use, but definitely prefer Bassett and Wainwright and even probably Burnes over him. For medium range, my favorite medium range pitcher and it's going to be kind of shocking because he's pitching at Coors, is German Marquez. But he gets the Miami Marlins, who really haven't, they traded some people away. They got some people back in lineup, like Brian Anderson is back and Jazz is back. But, they lost Duvall and they lost Marte to trading him away. So I think Marquez can have a decent game here. He's only 8-4, so I think he's going to be my favorite mid-range pitcher in my SP2 in some contests. But just looking at like some of his home starts recently, like St. Louis, he had 7 DK points. He had 37 versus Pittsburgh. Milwaukee at home, 19. He's going consistently at least 6 innings. So you're looking at all these other pitchers and you don't know how long they're going to go, but this guy is consistently going at least 6 innings here. Pittsburgh, you got like the 9. He almost, I believe that was the one where he almost had a no-hitter. So a 1-hitter. So it was a really good game for him, but just quality start after quality start after quality start. The only one that wasn't was versus Seattle, but still that wasn't a super bad start for him. So, really kind of like him as like a mid-range pitcher. Parrot Bassett. If you think that's a little bit too risky, then the next mid-range guy I think would go Wade Miley. Again, not a stellar pitcher, maybe a little bit past his prime. Last 2 starts haven't been great. And I know it's a Great American Small Park, but he gets Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh just really is struggling. They don't have a ton of power. It's just not a good team. I know he faced them earlier in the season. He put up 27 DK points. So, if he at 8-2, if he gets me 15 points, I'm happy here. If he gets through 5-6 innings, gives up maybe a couple runs on sprinkling a couple hits here and there, gets like 5 or 6 strikeouts, I think that's enough in this contest tonight. Next up, I would consider would be Means. I know Tampa Bay has gotten better. He's a left-handed pitcher. Like Cruz is a righty to face there. And Tampa Bay is a stack that I'm going to talk about that I'm really interested in, but Means a little bit expensive at 8-8, but I think he's also one that is solid this season and could potentially be somebody in the mid-range to look at, but I definitely like Marquez and Miley better. And then there's some lower guys that I would actually kind of even favor over Miley and Means. The first one would be Webb. Like I said, Milwaukee has struggled. San Francisco, I don't know how they're up against Burns, so it might be hard for him to get the win. But I think, if you're playing him, especially on FanDuel, could get the quality start. He's been around 14 DK points for the last 5 games or so. A little bit before that, he had some games in the 20s. So I think, he's somebody that could be solid enough to get you where you need to for like hitting and everything, and be a decent candidate for an SP2. I don't mind Minor either. On the other side, St. Louis, even though it's up against a lefty, he's been solid also recently. Last 3 games, 16 DK points, 24 DK points, 21 DK points. Had a blip against Cleveland, but he placed Toronto and came up with 16 DK points. The White Sox, which is a good lineup, especially against a left-handed pitcher, and came up with 24 DK points. And Milwaukee also. So I think there's some potential here at 7-8. There's definitely some savings. Quatrell is another guy that you could consider if you want to pay down for a pitcher for the Indians against the Tigers. I know the Tigers have been better recently, but Quatrell hasn't been horrible this season. 20 DK points against White Sox. St. Louis, 18.5. Against Oakland, 18.45. So I think that there's some, and he's usually getting about like 5 strikeouts a game. He's had quality starts. He's had 4 out of the last 5 games. So somebody to look at there too. And he's only 6'8", so there's some nice savings there. And if you're feeling a little bit lucky, Mike Fultonevich, I know he has really struggled this year, but he is only 4'9", And yes, he could completely get annihilated and blown up. But looking at how he's done against Oakland this year, he pitched against them on July 10th. He had 17.25 DK points. He pitched at Oakland, same situation, on June 29th. He had 24.7 DK points. He pitched against them a week earlier. He had 15.3 DK points. So he has faced them 3 times, and not like recently, but over the course of the season. And he has definitely put up. So if he at 4.9 gets you 15 DK points, and I'm talking, this is more of a GPP, this is more of a tournament thing. But even if he like gets 0 points, if he goes out there and he gets some strikeouts and he gives up some runs and really doesn't do anything at 4.9, if you get a 0 for him, that's the same as getting a 0 for like there are hitters. There are many hitters on DK that are more expensive than him that could get an absolute 0. And yes, he could possibly get some negative points here, but each game against Oakland, he's at least had 5 to 6 strikeouts. So I think there's enough equity here for him to go out there, and you can put him in your lineup with Chris Bassett, in the same lineup. I'm fine with that in tournaments, and you'd be able to definitely get some of the really nice bats that are out there. Okay, so who are these bats? Favorite 3 stacks tonight are going to be Cincinnati, New York Yankees, and Atlanta. Let's start with Cincinnati. Cincinnati is getting healthy. They get Pittsburgh, they get Brubaker. They're in the Great American Small Park. They had a great night last night. Votto continues to be hot. Yes, McKinley, you have finally turned me on to him. I finally believe in Joey Votto after the early on in the season being very skeptical. India has been solid. Winker Castellanos is back in the lineup. He's only 4K. Seems a little bit cheap. Moustakas is close to getting back. His price was like 6K or something too. It's like outrageous. So if he's in, it's gonna be hard to get this stack in. But in later on at the end of the video, I'll go over how to try to get a Cincinnati stack in there. So definitely like them. I think they're gonna be my favorite stack tonight. New York Yankees, going back to the well with them. Also, they're up against Seattle. You have Marco Gonzalez. So and it's a lefty, and you have like just so many righties here. So LeMahieu, Stanton, Judge at 4.2K just seems so cheap. He could hit 2 or 3 home runs in a night. Always has that potential there. Rizzo, I don't struggle with lefty and lefty. Gallo, I skeptical lefty and lefty, so I'd probably leave him out of the stack. But with Gary Sanchez out with COVID, Higashioka, is probably going to be catching, and he's shown some power. He's only 3K, righty lefty matchup, so really like that there. So they'd be my second favorite, and then Atlanta would be my third favorite stack. They get Eric Fetty, who's not a horrible pitcher, but not a great one either. But Jack Peterson leading off there is really cheap at 4.7, and then I just go down the rest of the stack. Albies, Freeman, Riley, Duvall. If you want to save a little bit, you can drop down to Soler. Swanson, depending on where he is in the lineup, drop down. Maybe like void a catcher if you want to do kind of like a wraparound stack thing. He's only 3.2, so that's not a bad stack there. They have a 5.47 run total. And then I think Tampa Bay would be my favorite. They're definitely, those 3 are in the A level. Tampa Bay would be a B level. Even though I said Means would be an option, a little bit pricey. Again, like I said, Tampa Bay has been really good against right-handed pitching now that they've added some new guys to the lineup here. So Randy Arozarena, Franco, Cruz, Diaz, Margot's really cheap at 3.5. So if catcher, they have Maeda in here, but if Tampa Bay ends up playing Zunino at catcher, he's really good at crushing lefties, like strikes out a lot, but he has a lot of power against them also. So that's another stack to consider for cash. For GPP, Oakland, again, like I said, Fultonevich has been good against them, but they do have a high total. And if you think Fultonevich is going to struggle and you're not playing him, then GPP, they work. Houston, going back to the Astros, they're just such a good team. They're up against Bailey Ober, who is young pitcher. He's been okay in his last couple of starts, but it's only going like 4 or 5 innings, not really getting maybe about 4 strikeouts a game. Houston doesn't strike out that much. I think they can be patient. Brantley, his price has dropped way down, has a splits advantage. He's only like 3K. I mean, he still has some power, and he hasn't been horrible. He's had a hit in the last 2, 4, 6 games, and before that, like, he had a little bit of a cold streak, but there's only one game where he had a 0 in the last 10. Every other game, he's had at least 5 DK points or above, some of them in the teens. So for 3K, definitely somebody that's looks to be way underpriced. So, you can lock in the lefties here. If you have a couple other things like Diaz in there, McCormick, or another cheap guy cracks the lineup like last night, then it definitely helps make the stack work even better. Colorado would be the next one. They're up against a decent pitcher for Miami. It's, I think, one of the ones that they picked up in the trade when they got rid of some Alcantara, or maybe he's been there. It's just like all these trades, there's everything just been so confusing for this season. But anyways, he's a decent pitcher. It's the lower total of cores that I've seen recently. It's only 9.5, but I think you can still look at some Rockies here, especially lefties like Tapia, Blackman, Story. You have the wind blowing out at like 10 miles per hour. It's going to be 81 degrees, so not like super, super hot. But the Rockies always have potential to put up multiple runs just in that hitting situation at Coors Field. Toronto, I think with all the other options tonight, they're going to be lower ownership against the Red Sox. That's a decent pitcher. Evaldi, has given up some runs, but overall he's been pretty solid. I just think, the Toronto stack with just the pricing and everything just gets lost if you try to stack the top 5. Like even Teoscar Hernandez is over 5K now, and like none of them really have the splits advantage here. Like Corey Dickerson's still cheap at 3.3. Reese McGuire. So there are some pieces, but they're down on my GPP stack just because they're just so expensive, and it's not a great matchup. They only have a 4.82 total there. Cheap stacks to look at. Baltimore would be my favorite against Yarbrough. He's struggled, and some of these righties are really, really cheap. Mancini's under 5K now. Hayes at 2.5. Santander at 2.3. Mountcastle, Urias. I mean, there's so many just right-handed guys that you can either sprinkle in or take as a full stack. I like Cleveland a lot last night too, and against Matt Manning, he's a good young pitcher, but has struggled at times. And Detroit's really limiting their pitching to try to save them for the next couple of years. Don't want to give them experience, but don't wear them out. And their bullpen's not great. So Zimmer's always cheap leading off. Rosario, Jose Ramirez is 6.4. That is so expensive. He sat out yesterday. For Mel Reyes, I like him better with against a lefty. Bradley, Straw, if he leads off, even though he doesn't have the split advantage, he's got some speed. So there's some pieces in this Cleveland lineup that make a lot of sense against a pitcher that's young and inexperienced. And again, they could be pieces to sprinkle in with your other stacks, or if you want to, in a GPP, do a full stack on them. You got to consider Miami, even though I like Marquez, I think he's in a great spot in the GPP stack. They are in Coors Field, so they don't have a huge run total being Coors. It's only 4.3, but, looking at like Jazz, Brinson, I have him in a lot of my lineups. There's only 2Ks at Coors Field. He's batting 4th, so if he gets me a 0, he gets me a 0. But in the last 3 out of 4 games, he has 9 DK points, 0 DK points, 10 DK points, and 27 DK points. He has some power. He has hit a home run in the last 4 games, hit some RBIs, some doubles. So, there's potential there at 2K. Just if he gets a couple hits, it just makes a huge difference there and gets you other people in your lineup. And then finally, I would look at Seattle. They are kind of like Detroit, where they've kind of they're not a great team, but they've are improving. I think there's a lot of nice pieces looking to the future. Not sure who the Yankees pitcher is. One guy I saw looks like he might be called up from AAA, and he's really struggled his last couple starts down there. I've seen Wandy Peralta also 4K, so it might turn into a bullpen game. So they might not have the young pitcher, but it, again, in a GPP stack or just sprinkling them in, if they put up like 5 or 6 runs in the first couple innings, then that might be all you need. So, definitely, yeah, we'll see what the splits matchup is. If it's a righty, obviously we're going to take some of the lefties there. If it's a lefty, we'll take the righties, but I always like Seager is definitely a decent one to put in either matchup. And I've always loved playing Abraham Torres. His price is 3-3 now, so he's starting to get up there a little bit, but he's just been a nice, consistent person to play at like second or third base. If I'm not playing Altuve or another guy, but he's had DK points in 2, 4, 6, 8. In his last 14 games, he's scored at least something. He hasn't gotten you a 0. So love that consistency. So that pretty much wraps up pitchers and stacks. Let me just quickly go through some lineup builds. So again, this is one of the ones where I'm going to lock in Bassett. I'm going to build my stack, and then I'm going to see who I want to put in for my SP2 with the amount of money I have left. So I'll start with the Cincinnati stack. I'll start with Bassett. I'm going to go Suzuki at 2K against the LA Dodgers. There's a couple other 2K guys, so I think it's safe to benchmark or earmark a 2K guy at catcher, because I think there's enough options to flex around. Some guys 2-1, 2-2, so you might need to make a little bit of adjustment, but I think it's pretty safe to go very, very low at catcher. So assuming Moustakas is not playing, even if he is, I don't think I'll play him at the price that they're asking for him. I think I'll go Votto, India, Castellanos, and Winker. Then maybe throw a Naquin there too, lefty righty matchup. Maybe he moves up in the order a little bit, and then that leaves you a decent amount for so SP2. If I throw in like somebody in Marquez range at 8-4, that's going to leave me about 3K left per batter. If I go down a little bit more to like Mike Minor or who I says, okay, that gives you 3-2. And if I go all the way down to like Webb, that gives you about 3-5. So you could also go up to Stevenson, a catcher, if you don't want to play Naquin there, and figure out what you want. If you don't play Naquin there, like I said, throw Brinson in at outfield at 2K, and that gives you a little bit more money at third base and shortstop to finish that off. The second one, like I said, was New York Yankees. So Bassett, I'm going to use Higgy as the catcher because I like him against left-handed. Rizzo, DeLemayhew, Judge, and Stanton. And actually with this one, you can put a stack of Marlins at third base, shortstop, and Brinson would be the outfielder to finish off the stack, and then just figure out who you want for your SP2 with the money you have left in that range. And then finally, the Atlanta Braves stack, Bassett, Suzuki again a catcher, Freeman, Albies, Riley. Again, I'll have to see where Swanson is batting. I don't know if I take him at shortstop. I think I would rather take maybe Duvall or Soler in the outfield. But if not, it leaves you, it should leave you at least one outfield spot. So again, Brenson or Brantley are the two guys that I would fill in there. I think that they are in the best spots. And then again, see what you have left and fill in your SP2. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this helped out. Leave some comments before if you have any questions. Always check back at like around 6:30 if there's major news for the day. Stuff we talked about here that no longer applies, and we'll drop a note just to kind of help you guys out with any pivots and stuff. Hit me up on Twitter at Megalura31 and give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.